Welcome to the CQC video training series. This is a spot topic video on the variable cheat sheet. In this video, we're going to look at the variable cheat sheet. Variables are discussed in depth in other videos and in the written documentation, but briefly, they are just temporary storage areas for values that you would like to either save and reuse later, or in many cases where you need to make a copy of something, manipulate it in some way, and then use it again. In either of those cases, you need to be able to store a value somewhere that you can access, and that's what variables are for. Local variables are just within the action that creates them, and then they are discarded. Global variables are used to keep track of things across actions, and so they tend to be reused. And that raises the issue of how do you remember what the names of these variables are, and the variable cheat sheet allows you to deal with that issue. To demonstrate the variable cheat sheet, I'm just going to set up a very simple little scenario here. I've created a throwaway user interface, and it is the case that user interfaces are where you would most likely use global variables. It's one of those places where you very much will tend to want to save previously selected values and reuse them later. For instance, you might want to remember the last movie genre that the user selected so that if you go back into the movie screen, you can make that the initial genre. Or you may wish to remember which thermostat the user selected because you are now about to load a screen that will allow them to manipulate a thermostat, and that's how you're going to initialize that screen in order to target the selected thermostat. So there are lots of places where you would make use of global variables. Just to demonstrate, I will create a static text widget here. We'll use this just as a output value. So I need to give this a name so that we can target it. So I'll call this output. And now let's create one button here. And this is just be a command button. This is all off your screen, sorry, but it's just creating a command button. And we'll call this one, say, set. So let's say this is going to stand for the genre selection command. We won't actually do that, but we'll pretend like we did, and we want to remember that genre. So if we go into the actions for this particular button, so let's just do command global variables, and I'll do set variable, which is just a very simple way to create a variable. And now we can enter a variable name and a value to set to it. And of course, if we knew the name of the variable, we could just type it in. But as you get more and more complex screens going, and over time, of course, as well, you tend to forget these things. So anywhere that you need to enter a variable name, the helper button to the left will invoke the variable cheat sheet. And all this does is just allow us to enter a list of variables and provide notes beside them so that we can remember what they're for. So if we hit add, it just inserts one for us with a default name, which we can edit. And you have to keep the gvar colon part. That's a standard prefix for global variables. We won't get into why here. So let's call this one last genre. And for the note, we'll say last genre selected, I can't type, selected in movie screen. And now if we just hit select, it will insert that variable name for us. And let's go ahead and just set a value here. So we'll call this one a romance. And if we save that now, we now have a action that will select a genre. And now let's say later we wanted to reuse that genre. So let's copy this button. And this would be the placeholder for the button that would load up the movie screen. So we'll call this one movies. And if we go to its action, so now we can say we want to be able to use that value. In this case, by using it, all we're going to do is just write it to that output. So if we do command output set text, so this allows us to set the text of that text widget. And now we have to enter a value. And here again, we could just enter a value if we know it. But in this case, the value we want is inside a variable. And we could also, if we know the name of the variable, just type that in within the correct syntax. And that would work as well. But you can also just right click, hit insert in variable, and that gets you back to the cheat sheet. And in this case, what we want to do is select by value, because what we're looking for here is not the name of the variable, but the value that's inside it. And if we select that, it will insert it in the correct syntax to get the value out of it. So if we save that, now let's actually save the template, and then I'll go run the interface viewer. And Let's load that particular template there. And now if we do set, we should now have the value in the variable. And if we select movies, it should write that value out, and it does. So in a way, this was actually a demonstration as much of variables as it was of the cheat sheet. But hopefully this slightly more realistic scenario, it would help you understand a little bit more how you would use the cheat sheet. So that's basically it. Make good use of the cheat sheet. It can save you a lot of time, but also it can save you a lot of mistakes as well, because you're sure that you're going to get the right spelling, and the variables are going to be named correctly and consistently. So make good use of it, and we'll see you in the next video.